Hi, I'm Fran with Stampendous, and we've got some beautiful new stamps and matching cutting dies to show you. These are the Rose Bouquet set, and as you can see here, you get all of this selection of roses and a beautiful vase. And you also, if you see this at the top, be sure and notice that you have a free stencil. We're going to show you how to use that. And on the back, you get lots of colorful ideas to get you started. And you'll see some more of these projects up close as we go along. And for storage, I'm usually going to put them into my Stampendous, and I can have these magnetic sheets for my dies on one side and my cling rubber on the other. These are the wonderful magnetic sheets from Crafter's Companion. So let's start with some of our mixed media white paper here. As you've seen, it works for everything from your markers to your watercolor, color pencils, anything, and we'll show you a little bit of all of the above here. So I'm going to fast forward here a little bit of some stamping to get you rolling, and then show you how to take the best advantage of your stencils. With the stencils, our little bridges are so small that you can now just simply pop them out. And there you see the overlap beginning. So there you see how these stencils are going to help you develop all of your interesting overlap work and your masking. And the same way with your vase stencil, you might choose to take that piece out, and besides using the positive to cover up something behind, you might also use it to do some coloring inside. We'll line that up. And then we'll begin to do some other bits of coloring here along the edge. And then your water brush, you could begin to do some washes coming in from that edge. So you have the positive and the negative pieces of the stencil. Now let's talk about some more coloring options. And you can see here, if you get a little gap here and there, you'll be able to use your colors to fill in a little bit around the edges. So you've got your color pencil options to start with, and then you've also got so many other choices with your Copic markers, your Spectrum Noir. So I've stamped quite a bit on my watercolor mixed media paper here, and I'm using a little bit of everything. So let's talk about a couple of things here. I think it's very important when you do your coloring that you have something real to look at. So I got online and I collected photos, and I took a bunch out of my own photos, and I took all these beautiful photos of roses, and just for different colors, and to study how sometimes the color is darker in the center, other times it may be like here, other times it may be darker around the perimeter. Your lighting and all of that is going to change, but having something to look at for colors, I think, is very helpful. And if you go to the reality of photographs instead of other people's artwork, you're going to learn a lot and study coloring and shading from life itself. So let's take a look over here, and you'll see on this one I started out with some of the Copic markers. And let me mention a couple of things. For me, having the hand color chart was really important. This tells me all the colors that I have in my collection And when I begin to do some coloring, as I select colors, I'm going to go to this chart to reference which colors I need. So I've selected a range of my palest pinks and even beige colors. I was trying to emulate some of the colors here, and I think it's nice to leave some of the white of the paper coming through, and as you begin to do different colors, you really can move around with just tints of color, and skipping into a little bit of the yellow just gives more life to it, I think. And then I was really intrigued with some of the roses that have these beautiful stripes to them, and you really have to look at them to imagine how interesting and irregular they are. But I did a bit of that on this one up here, and it's really fun just to be able to add some stripes and something unusual to your colors. On the leaves, I did this one using my different Copic markers. Then I switched over to the Spectrum Noir on all the one here in the middle. And on the ones on this side, then I did some work with the Chameleon. And again, with these, you can tint your different colors. And I'm finding that the bullet point works as well for me as anything. And you're holding it upright where you can see the clear, adding a lighter tint to the tip of the darker green. And you can always test it and see what's happening, but you're going to get light to dark in one stroke that way, which is really fun. So you can use any and all of these options for coloring, as well as your color pencils, and really do some beautiful shading and color to all of your roses. Now let's talk about the cutting dies for a minute. I'm using a magnetic plate, and I've got my clear layer underneath, and I've lined up all of the dies, and you can do a whole grouping of them here at the same time. And as you slide the die around, you should be able to, if you're seeing black on the edge, you're not quite lined up. So move it until it lines up perfectly. And then you have your other layer. I've got my do not cut layer, and I've actually run it through already. And now I'll show you how this entire batch here is working, because all of our dies have the cut line on that inner edge, and so we work them out to such precision that you should really get a nice cut on each and every one of these, and you're ready to pull out all of these fine pieces. And I want to show you a nice little trick here using several layers of our roses here together, and show you how we've designed them to work in layers. On this card you can see how just using one of each size and the leaves gives you a beautiful effect, and I'm using some of my Creative Palette papers for the backgrounds on these cards. And I want to show you a special trick that I did on this one, where I've layered up all of these different sizes of roses. With the middle size rose, I'm going to cut right along the curve of this petal in the front, and I'm going to take my rosebud and I'm going to hand cut these other little leaves off. And this is going to slide in, and I'm going to put a sticky square to raise up this end and position both of these to 3D on top of this rose, and it comes together in a beautiful full rose like you see here on this card. If you haven't worked with our pop-up die, I want to show you a couple of things. We came out with it when we brought out this beautiful Build a Bouquet, And the pop-up die has so many incredible pieces in it. And if you haven't worked with it before, you'll see all the pieces here. And there's also a very detailed instruction sheet that comes with it. So to show you a couple of things, for a vertical format, I'm using a half sheet of paper scored in the middle for my outside card. And my inner card is a 1/4 inch smaller so that I get that nice little edge all the way around. And you're going to take your main pop-up structure, find the midpoint this way by simply pinching the edge of the card together if you want. And when you run it through your die cutting, it's going to score and cut everything that you need. And when you've run it through, then you need to train the folds. So you can turn it over, and holding it this way, I like to find the narrowest spot at the bottom. Then I fold it across the middle, push all the way up past this slot, and find the mountain fold on this side. And then you've got 4 tabs that if you're going to use them all, simply fold them all the way up and find the score that brings it part way back so that you have these different levels. And this tab here comes forward of the vase. And so many of you have asked why there's this little slot in the vase. Well, at last we are going to make good use of it. You can see how this rosebud on the long stem is going to slide right down into that slot and hold it in place for you to create your beautiful bouquet of flowers. And again, a good tip is to always put glue only on the tabs instead of the back of your other pieces. And then as you assemble all of the pieces, you will get all of the flowers and vases on this side. And then when you go to assemble it to the backing card, you want to apply glue all the way around the frame, avoiding all the windows. And that will allow you to glue each half on at a time. So let's take a look here at a couple of these beautiful pop-up cards. So here's one with pinks and reds, which is a beautiful array of colors. This one has more of just the rosebuds. And this one has another beautiful arrangement. And remember, you can stamp your vases on all sorts of beautiful prints for the vase as well. This one actually just die cut it. You don't need to stamp it. And then as you're seeing this beautiful little doily, if you haven't seen how we do that, I want to show that to you next, because it's one of the pieces in the pop-up, and it could use a little bit of explanation here. So there are 3 edgers in the set, and this one gives you a beautiful shape that you often can use on the outside of the card, or for another panel to do a written greeting or message on the inside of the card. But now I want to show you how I make this doily. My print is a thin one, so I'm actually have put 3 layers in here. I'm going to position this on top. I'm going to run it through a second time. And now I'm going to run it through a third time using my pop-up die. I have the cut side down, and I prefer to line it up right at, I can even it out on both sides by positioning it at that notch. And now I have a double doily that is already cut and scored exactly where I need it to fit around the vase. The one other cut I have to do is right at this fold, and that's going to remove the piece that I don't need for it to fit around the vase. So now you have a doily that always fits perfectly right up in and around that vase, and you can glue it both to this side and on this side of the fold as well. On this one I had some fun with my hole punches and just created a whole little series of decorative patterns, but now you can see how to make a beautiful doily for any of your pop-up cards. So now you can have an endless array of rose bouquets and make a Stampendous impression every time.